Hello, this is old Rob's Dark Humor again, episode number 5. And we're just making some announcements today about things we're doing. Um, and I've asked the board of directors of the family to come by and go over this with us. We're going to use what is known as the family system theory in our training exercise. It's developed by a group of psychologists to improve family function as a unit instead of just a lot of people doing their own thing. You don't need to worry about it controlling us. I know you're thinking about this, Buster. Just letting a bunch of psychologists, according to your thinking, involved in our gigs is a joke in itself. Well,
Hey Rob, why did the mailman die?
everybody dies. Everybody dies. Now, Buster, if you are happy with our family and with the world as it is, and don't think we need to have professional help in the crime business, you best change your medications. So what's going to happen is that these small groups of volunteers will study family function using the theory's methods. We'll consider organization and roles and boundaries. Boundaries, what the hell is that under this circumstance? And, rules and hierarchy and all that sort of thing. Now, it will not be totally academic. The trainees are going to get some help in some of the low-risk operations. For example, like truck hijacking and maybe some shipboarding. Now, the shipboarding, that's a hoot. We wear these pirates uniforms and we carry these swords and knives and stuff. And of course, we back up all this with M16 rifles and recoilless weapons just in case we need them. And sometimes we even make a captain and a first mate and maybe some of the troublemakers walk the plank. And as in the old days, now there's something that's dark humor funny watching these people walk the plank. And
Hey Rob, why did the man lost his wife? What did the man say when he lost his wife?
I lost my wife, and it's very surprising at how many of these old sailor boys don't know how to swim or swim over a short way before they disappear. It's a funny thing that goes on, but let's drop this now. We're going to go on to some new work that my younger brother, Jim Boy, remember from episode 1, is going to lead our work in Southeast Asia. We've already set up some financial institutions over there in poor countries, mostly loan shops and pawn shops, and in the poorer districts, as I've mentioned. There's some ancient selling and collection procedures have also been incorporated in our work, combined with some of the techniques that are used in Southern Europe. Now, some of these techniques that we will be using are pretty dark, and they're not very humorous. And they're, of course, as we in the past carried out, we have contractors, outside contractors that do most of this work for us. Well, this whole thing is looking pretty good, but I'm going to leave the discussion of the techniques and locations and to the workshops that are coming up pretty quick. Now, the big picture. kind of thing have reduced the base resources that we have to work with, but at the same time, they have opened up new opportunity paths for us. Now, note how I'm using them big words, them big business words in all of this discussion. So if you don't understand some of these words, you just call me out. When you take immigration, for example, immigration to the U.S., you remember that little kid that we monitored once? He said, "Mom, I don't want to go to America." And she said, "Shut up, kid, and keep swimming." Well, so debt and death are two constants.
Hey, Rob, why did the postman die?
We all die, Lucy. And that's the way it is. Well, we all die, and the prices have already gone up to the point that individual legal cremations are financially difficult. Some of you know we couldn't decide whether to bury grandma or cremate her, and so we just decided to let her live. It was the cheapest way to go. Now, this brings to mind a little story that was monitored out of Solly Island. A regular dog-sized dog, sort of like the one I've got over there, that lazy dog lying on the couch, got abandoned by one of our recreation ships. Now, we'll have an episode later on about our recreation ships, but I'm not going to discuss that today. But we must note that we're allowing the dog to talk. Now, we don't usually allow animals to talk in our work, and we decided not to mention chickens in most of our work for reasons that we mentioned in our early episode, social reasons. So, but we do occasionally allow dogs to talk, and that's what we're going to do here. But we do avoid ethnic and breed differences when we're talking about dogs and perhaps other animals. Yeah. So, anyway, he got abandoned, dropped off by the ship, mistakenly, I guess. So this dog dressed up in the local gear and approached the harbor shop steward. I guess there's somebody in the harbor. All harbors have a shop steward who was handing out the jobs. And so our dog asked for a job. Well, the woman running the place looked at him with a good bit of surprise and then looked around and she said, "Well, there's a community cremation going on now, about 20 bodies, and a big associated parade that's moving on right now. They got a lot of good music, a lot of good food, and you might just fit in." And the dog looked around at the goings on and said, "What the hell does a community cremation need with a plumber?" And so he stole a plate of nasi goreng and took off. We have not seen that dog since, but we assume that he will show up at a recreation ship before too long. So these elaborate multiple celebratory cremations are already normal in some of the countries that we're getting into.
Hey, Rob, they are the last chance of being really hot.
And that's the truth. So we ought to be locally organized to collect new money from these community cremations. It costs a lot of money to do this, and there are taxes, and there's fees, and you know all about these things from our experience. It's just like in banking, you know, you got all these fees and so forth. So I've established a three-person committee to set up standards to use up and down the archipelago. And then, Buster, I know, you're going to say, damn your committees, Rob. We're a family business, not a damn corporation. Committee shit. But now remember, Buster, our intelligence committee worked and caused the collapse of three Asian banks to the tune of $150 million for us. And
but why did the mailman die?
oh, they all die. All the mailmen die. All the people die. Everybody dies. And they, as a little joke, this committee, after they got the banks to fail, made the banks handle cremation cost of all the resulting suicides. And we thought that was funny. To summarize, and I'm going to read this because this is a position statement that we're making. We have an environmental mess combined with a rotating mix of economic inflation and depression. And this is all backed by widespread, constant poverty. This represents an enormous economic opportunity for our family. However, we're reluctant to benefit from this situation except from the naturally occurring jokes that are already emerging. Hey, have you heard the one about the disappearing islands? Therefore, I've just hired a sustainability consultant from a major university to advise on sustaining this environment that I've just described. She will also advise on, of course, on mitigation. Does anyone know what mitigation means? Skeleton walks into a bar and orders a beer and a mop. That's mitigation. And that's the end of today's program.